I love spooky season, the time of year where we have fun getting scared. I had been wanting to do a video about scary things from childhood for a while. At the same time, I'd also found some strange videos from yesteryear that were pretty unsettling in their own right. Since neither was enough for one video, I've decided to combine these ideas into one grab bag. The first section will be looking at the old black and white clips I found, and the second one will be looking at personal memories. Some of these things genuinely scared me, others just gave me the shivers or sparked my imagination. But enough rambling. You're not here for the introduction, you're here for everything that follows. Let's start our tour back in the 50s. Some people are scared of clowns. Some people are scared of dolls. It stands to reason then that some people find clown dolls to be incredibly frightening. But this isn't just any clown doll we're talking about, it's a Bozo the clown doll. Even if you've never seen a single episode of Bozo's Circus, you probably at least have a vague idea of who Bozo is. He was created as a records character in 1946. In 1957, he was rebranded as Bozo, the world's most famous clown, which they had probably hoped would become a self-fulfilling prophecy. They were correct. But in between, Bozo starred in a 1954 TV pilot that has been largely forgotten. The reason I wanted to cover this in the Halloween grab bag was because of how creepy the first couple minutes are. We are introduced to your typical 1950s television family. Little Amy has a clown doll that she carries around and insists is real, much to her father's annoyance. He actually pinches the doll to prove a point. I'm glad Bozo is such a nice clown, because this scenario is beginning to remind me a lot of the Talking Tina episode of The Twilight Zone. As you can see, that is one unattractive clown doll. It's a great representation of this version of Bozo, looking completely accurate, but that kind of works against it. Making a poltergeist reference would be the obvious move, but you're probably already thinking it. When Amy says the magic words, her doll becomes the real Bozo. He reminds her that her parents will never understand.
And another thing, don't spend so much time telling your mother and father I'm real. You know they don't believe it.
You're right, but I just can't help it.
That's one of those things that was completely innocent then, but comes off as incredibly sinister now. Barney the dinosaur operated the same way, most of the time coming to life when only the children were around. But the creators had the good sense to never have Barney say, "Remember kids, you can't tell your parents about this." Another moment that would have driven the censors mad comes shortly after Bozo's introduction. He and Amy need to shrink themselves, so they each take a magic shrinking pill. The adult clown that you need to keep secret hands you a pill. Sure kid, go ahead. If any show needed a "don't try this at home" disclaimer, it would be this one. Jokes aside, once you get over the creepy appearance of Bozo, both as a doll and as a clown, and the hilariously dated parts I mentioned, there's not a lot worth talking about. The story revolves around Amy's dog being accused of stealing her neighbor's prized chicken. Bozo and Amy talk to several animals to figure out the mystery, and then they have to save the dog from the pound. It's a by-the-numbers slice of 50s children's TV. It's probably of most interest to fans of Bozo, or clown history in general, since this is a rare look at the world's most famous clown when he was more of an obscurity. For whatever reason, Ice-Capade shows have been a goldmine for creepy character costumes. There's a rather infamous segment that's made its rounds online, with the Super Mario Bros., for example. That one has been covered by many people over the years, and I don't think there's all that much I can add at this point. Here's another one. When Disneyland opened, they didn't have enough time to fashion new costumes, so they reused some Ice-Capade wardrobes from a few years prior. That's why Mickey, Minnie, and the others look so unsettling in early footage and photos. Again, this has been pretty well documented. What we'll be looking at has gone much more under the radar. The Flintstones on Ice was a TV special that aired in 1973. The reason I'm putting this obscure special in the video is because of the creepier than usual costumes they used. The Fred costume, for instance, has a much smaller, squatter head than the cartoon character. This was definitely built with skating in mind first, and appearance second. Barney looks somewhat decent, but I find Wilma and Betty to be the worst. There is something so unsettling about these women. They look like the suit Buffalo Bill was trying to make in his basement. Plus, maybe it's the low quality of the video, or maybe my mind has been warped by years on the internet, but their faces vaguely resemble blow-up dolls. Fred and Barney look like shoddy Times Square costumes, but their wives evoke the uncanny valley. Even more unsettling, although for different reasons, is a pair of trained ice skating chimps. The premise is that several ice skaters are unable to perform, and so against all odds, Fred, Barney, Wilma, and Betty are called in as their replacements. The twist is, The husbands and wives are unaware that their significant others are in the show for most of the performance. There's a touch of the wacky sitcom shenanigans running throughout, but the focus is understandably on the skaters more than the characters. Each Flintstone and Rubble thinks they're getting one over on their spouses. They all enjoy spending time around the attractive skaters. At a couple points, they even walk around the audience and sit on a few strangers' laps. You'd never see this happening today. The couples are able to inadvertently dodge each other for most of the special. Every time Wilma and Betty take to the ice, Fred and Barney have just finished. When they inevitably meet face to face, they actually have a good sense of humor about it. Sharing a laugh, they all skate together for the big finale. It's almost sweet, but they still have those blank, soulless eyes. Eesh. That's it for the old finds, but now I want to talk about a few moments from my own childhood that have long since stuck with me. In fact, some of them were also about skating. Halloween on Ice. There were a few versions of this that aired over the years, and I'm focusing on the 1996 and 1998 broadcasts. The part that stuck with me the most was the opening of the 96 one. Nancy Kerrigan skates to Brahms' Lullaby, playing a young girl getting ready to sleep. As she settles into her enormous bed, the familiar chords of John Carpenter's Halloween theme begin to play. The announcer warns us that sleep is always restless on Halloween. As Nancy tosses and turns, we enter her nightmare. A group of skeletons crawl out from under her bed and begin to skate around her as menacingly as a person in a skeleton costume can. To your adult eyes, you might find this corny as Miss Kerrigan found Disney World. But to a child, this was a genuinely harrowing performance. Once the skeletons actively start towing the bed around like a Zamboni, Nancy does the rational thing and tries to skate the hell out of there. More skeletons block her path, and she's eventually chased back to her bed with her bony pursuers collapsing all around her. I love horror now, but it took some time for that to develop. I think that moments like this planted the seeds for the horror fan I would eventually become. The idea of not just one, but many monsters crawling out from under your bed and chasing you around is a classic childhood fear, and as silly as this may look today, I think it tapped into those anxieties very well. Another performance that affected me was Joseph Savavchik skating to Welcome to My Nightmare, complete with Alice Cooper makeup. This one had a more adult aesthetic, with our punkish lead player being menaced by some creepy masked characters, including a mummy and the Grim Reaper. A scantily clad devil and a wild woman with a snake added a sexual element to the affair, one that certainly caught my attention as a kid, but I wouldn't understand why until years later. In the end, the nightmares overtake Savavchik, dragging him off in a noose. Speaking of nightmares, in 1998, I was also spooked by Philippe Candelaro as Freddy Krueger. Of course, Freddy Krueger on ice sounds like a punchline, but again, to a kid who was only vaguely aware of who this character was, I was pretty frightened. I'm not sure who's doing the Freddy voice, but it's probably not Robert Englund.
Don't be frightened, and don't move, because I'm coming to you.
About halfway through the performance, Freddy removes his hand and squirts blood at the audience, who are loving every moment. I'm a little sad Nancy Kerrigan didn't get in on this one, since Freddy stalking Nancy would be completely on brand for his character. In fact, if they hadn't ended the original series with the increasingly campy Freddy, I could imagine him killing someone in a figure skating dream at some point. Here's another one that I'm kind of embarrassed about. Who remembers Real Scary Stories? A little before shows like Ghost Hunters became all the rage, Fox Family used to have a program where kids would recount scary events or visit haunted places. To my recollection, they rarely encountered anything on these trips, but they did the typical, "oh, we felt a presence" spiel at the end. There's one moment that I remember really well. An episode had a segment about a family who had a clip on one of their home movies that possibly featured a ghost. There's a shot of the whole family watching the tape and screaming in absolute terror right before the commercial break. The actual footage is a few frames of a woman who might be holding a rifle or something over her head. I was and still am a believer in the paranormal, but even as a kid I thought this was a letdown, and I realized that the scream reaction was staged. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing up this show was because of the introduction. Here's a sampling.
Imagine hearing an odd sound that can't be explained, or seeing a shadowy figure move, but no one is there. A light flickers.
You feel a cold breath on your neck. Is it your imagination, or is it real?
Of course, this is just two teenagers taking turns speaking in a monotone voice. They would do this throughout the show. When I do it, it sounds silly. And honestly, it sounded silly then too. Okay, I'm not doing that anymore. Like I said, it's very silly, but it set the mood perfectly when I was younger. And now, onto one of my favorite subjects, Muppets. One of their lesser remembered but very well done productions was 1989's Song of the Cloud Forest. It's a quintessentially Jim Henson project, with impressive puppetry, a clear environmental message, and a tight script. It packs a ton of emotion into a half-hour story about Milton, an endangered toad who's grown lonely. A pair of scientists come to his rainforest with a female toad, hoping to use her to catch Milton and get them to mate, saving their species. Milton and the other animals don't understand this, and Milton must choose whether or not to let his song be heard and risk getting captured. It's incredibly poignant, but it doesn't sound scary, right? The nightmare fuel comes about halfway through. Ralph Robin, who flies to the warm jungle during the winter, explains to the animals what the humans do. The animals refer to us as uprights, and from their point of view, we're weird gray creatures who want nothing more than to feast on them and their home. During the haunting song Munching Forest, we see fantasies where monster-like humans eat plate after plate of trembling animals, or just plain devour the trees. In close-up shots, the uprights look like Easter Island heads with mouthfuls of sharp teeth. Instead of living in a friendly, colorful setting, the uprights are shown with a background that matches their concrete colors, a disturbing parody of the big city. Disney's Bambi did a great job by not showing the hunters and leaving them as an unseen force of nature, but I think this portrayal of humans as abstract monsters is equally effective. The Munching Forest has remained with me for many years. To take a tiny break from the spookiness, I recommend you seek out and watch Song of the Cloud Forest. It's amazing what an emotional gauntlet it's able to run in such a short time. Wonder, melancholy, existential fear, romance, and hope all in a little package. Another Henson production with its share of creepiness was Fraggle Rock. The Fraggles might have lived to dance their cares away, but their home wasn't always so cheerful. Hostile creatures like poison cacklers, enormous globs, and terrible tunnels preyed upon Fraggles and Doozers. There's a sense of mystery and danger lurking outside the safety of the Great Hall. The Fraggles often wondered about outer space, which is what they called our world, but their own world had plenty to worry about. The different puppets they used were also quite diverse. Outside the main three species, Fraggles, Doozers, and Gorgs, there were a number of one-shot creatures where the puppet builders really got to get creative, and sometimes ominous. You got the sense that some of these odd monsters that just kind of hung around in the background could potentially be hostile if provoked. It kept the spirit of the early Muppet sketches where the monsters were weird and unfriendly. One of my favorite creepy Fraggle Rock elements is the T. Matthew Fraggle Room. This is a mysterious cavern discovered by Traveling Matt with countless portals leading to other worlds. That's pretty nebulous, but the creepy part is the zombie-like Fraggle Scarecrow outside. Turning his arm reveals the secret entrance. The Scarecrow has already been set up when Matt stumbles upon the cave, and we never find out who's responsible for it in the first place. It was introduced in the show's final season, so we never saw too much of it. I had one of its episodes on tape, Red's Blue Dragon, which I watched a lot. In fact, for a while, this was my only exposure to Fraggle Rock. That creepy scarecrow probably means more to me than it does to a lot of Muppet fans. As for some trivia, the scarecrow prop actually originated in an earlier episode. In the secret society of Poobahs, one of the members has a staff with a Fraggle head on it. When they deem Moki unworthy of joining, the staff's head sticks his tongue out. This later became the Scarecrow's head, complete with tongue. A lot of work clearly went into the Back to the Rock reboot series, but I think it misses that sense of low-key dread that the original series captured every now and then. There's still danger in the form of natural disasters, but The Rock feels a lot more inviting. And perhaps that's what tested well with the target audience, but I like my Fraggle Rock a little scarier.
Fear, anxiety, terror, paranoia, indigestion, dishpan hand.
So the Disney Channel used to be really interesting. Based on old recordings and personal memories, you never really knew what they were going to show. Its programs originally did not have commercial breaks, which meant that the ads between the shows were a little longer. They would also show various shorts and clips between the shows, seemingly at random. What I remember really loving was the channel bumpers. Just like Nickelodeon, for a time, the Disney Channel put a lot of love and care into these ads. There was a particular series by Colossal Pictures that were shown from Mickey Mouse's point of view, so all we could see were his hands with those iconic white gloves. Sometimes the bumpers would be simple and short, while others were more elaborate productions. This last entry is one that stuck with me since the day I saw it so many years ago. It's not that it scared me exactly, although it's certainly horror-themed. Maybe it spooked me a little, but more than anything, it fascinated me and lodged itself into my memories. On a dark and stormy night, Mickey winds his alarm clock and goes to sleep. We are then in his dreams, where one of his hands is running from a ghostly version of the Disney Channel logo. The chase takes him through a gallery where older bumpers line the walls. Animated Mickey hands reach out of the screens, grabbing at the running hand, all while the evil logo closes in. The alarm clock goes off, and a trembling Mickey gives it a relieved pat. I only saw this one once, but I remembered it for years. Thanks to the internet, I know it wasn't some nightmare that I had, but an actual commercial. There was something about the stormy night setting and how it seemed like the old bumpers were revolting against their master that really appealed to me. These bumpers had so much personality. They fit into the whimsical Disney brand, but they were offbeat with a distinct sense of humor. Now I can't help but overanalyze the bumper and what Mickey's dream means. Is he running from the pressure of fame? Is he haunted by the corporation that has exploited his image for so long? Does he even want to be Mickey Mouse anymore? I mean, his alarm clock is shaped like his head. If all my furniture was made in my image and people wore novelty hats that look like my scalp, I think I'd go a little crazy too. This isn't just a commercial, this is art. That's it for this creepy little stroll down memory lane. I can't guarantee it, but I'm hoping to have some more frights for next year, or perhaps the following. Did any of these resonate with you? Any core memories unlocked? Please let me know. Either way, thank you for all your support, and have a happy Halloween.